Aloha and welcome. In this lesson, we're going to be talking about public key infrastructure, PKI. So PKI, it's the framework that handles digital certificates and public keys. So we talked about digital certificates before. We talked about the components of it and everything, how they're written, the formats for it. So now we're going to talk about the infrastructure around it. And the infrastructure includes hardware, software, people, policies, procedures that enable the creation, renewal, revocation, and the distribution of these digital certificates. So you've got 5 different parts here that make up this PKI, and that's going to be the Certificate Authority, or the CA, Registration Authority, RA. You're going to have the Certificate Repository, CR. You're going to have the Certificate Policy, CP. You're going to have Certificate Practice Statement, the CPS. So obviously, we love acronyms here. This is crazier than the military, and it reminds me of a scene from a movie you've probably not seen called Good Morning Vietnam, where I think it was Robin Williams' character Cronauer says to his boss as a joke, "Well, sir, if the VP is such a VIP, why don't we keep his PC on the QT, or else it'll leak to the VC, and then we'll go MIA and get put on KP." So it's that heavy in terms of the number of acronyms that we're using here. We've got PKI, CA, RA, CSR, CR, CRL, CP, CPS, and that's just in the first part of in our textbook here. So let me explain what all these acronyms are. They're going to be pretty self-evident. When you think of the structure of this PKI, how we're going to handle the management of these digital certificates. At the top of it, you've got the certificate authority, the CA. The CA is going to control the issuing, the renewing, the revocation, and the distribution of digital certificates. So they are a third party. They're trusted by everybody, and they have the authority over all these certificates. So when you, as a user, as a applicant, decide that you want to get a certificate, you don't go directly to the certificate authority. You go to what we call the registration authority. So you go to an RA. You're going to take your certificate signing request, your CSR, because we need another acronym here. So we're going to take our CSR, and that CSR is going to have our public key on it. It's also going to have our name, organization, department, and our physical and email addresses. So it's going to have all that information on it, and we're going to bring it to the RA. The RA is going to verify it. It's going to look up all this information, make sure we are who we say we are, and after it determines that we're good, it's going to go to the certificate authority. And the certificate authority, they're the ones that are going to issue that certificate, and they're going to distribute it. And they're going to put it into the next place we're going to talk about, which is the certificate repository, the CR, or also known as the central directory. So they store the digital certificates that are issued by the certificate authority, but they also have the naughty list there. They have this thing we call the CRL, the certificate revocation list. And that's a list of all the certificates that a CA is revoked prior to the expiration of certificates validity periods, meaning essentially that before that was supposed to expire, the CA said, we can't trust that, and they pull it. So that is the revocation list. I think of it as Santa's naughty list. So they've got the good list and they've got the naughty list. So think of it that way. And that's the certificate repository, place where things are stored. Then we have the certificate policy, the CP, and that's going to define the structure of your PKI. It's going to have the entities and roles, as well as it's going to specify the procedures and the operational requirements that you have. And last on our list, we've got the certificate practice statement, the CPS, and that's going to describe how a CA issues, renews, revokes, and distributes certificates. So the CPS helps a certificate user decide whether or not to trust the PKI certificates. Pardon me. So that's the first section. Next, we're going to get into the certificate life cycle. So a certificate you think of as it's going to be issued and then it's going to expire. There's other things in between though. So of course we have the issuance. That's where you've got the CA. It's going to say, okay, this is good to go. RA has told me that this is valid, so we're going to go ahead and start it. So they're going to go ahead and issue the thing. They're going to distribute it to the repository. But before it expires, let's just talk about expiration. Expiration is when it comes to the end of its life. It's got a life that's defined as its start date and its end date. When it hits the end date, that's it. And at that point, you can, the PKI's CP that we talked about, it defines the process of applying for a new certificate, after it expires. But, the expiration, that's the end of it. So In between issuance and expiration, we do have two other situations. We have revocation, which is what we talked about before, the naughty list. So a certificate can be revoked by the CA before the end of the validity period. And if it is revoked, then it gets added to that CRL that's held by the CR. Okay, so that's the certificate revocation list that's held over at the certificate repository. Then we also have suspension. So certificate's validity is temporarily suspended by a CA. Obviously, all these things are happening from the CA level. This isn't anything lower that's deciding. It's always the CA that's making these decisions. And then the validity of a suspected certificate may be reestablished, or it could then be revoked. Either way. So that's the life cycle. You've got issuance, you've got revocation, you've got suspension, and you've got expiration. Next, we're going to talk about the PKI trust models, and that's going to get into the PKI trust model, the PKI architecture, and that's going to describe the type of trust relationship that exists between the PKI and the PKI certificate users. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. I want to show you some visuals here that will help you see what I'm talking about. So here we've got the PKI trust model. The first one we're going to talk about is the single CA trust model. This is one where you've got one CA that's handling all the certificates, and that's going to be a little bit unwieldy. It doesn't really scale up for large networks, and you can use this possibly inside your company if it's a small company. As you get to be a huge company, conglomerate with multiple foreign entities, you may have to rethink that. But for a small company, for things like that, you can have your own CA internally. So the single CA trust model, it's one where the CA issues all the certificates, but if the CA's private key is compromised, all of those certificates are revoked, all of them. So that's not, as I mentioned, it's not scalable. The next step is going to be the hierarchical trust model, or root, where you have a root CA at the top. It's not actually going to be issuing end user certificates or anything like that. It's going to issue certificates to intermediate CAs. So you're going to have the top one up here. You're going to have that the CA. Then you're going to have these intermediate CAs, and those intermediate CAs are the ones that are going to be actually issuing the certificates to entities. So the certificate user trusts the certificates issued by an intermediate CA because the intermediate CA is in turn trusted by the root CA. So the root CA gives trust to the intermediate, and then everybody can trust whatever the intermediate CA says is okay because of that chain of trust that we have there, that chain of trust that's established through the linkage. The root CA in this relationship, it's called a trust anchor because they're the anchor of this trust relationship. So the good thing about this one is, let's say you have one CA and you've got 5 intermediate CAs. One of those intermediate CAs is somehow compromised and you can't trust the keys on there. Instead of now everything under this one CA being compromised, you're only losing trust in the ones that are in that one singular intermediate CA. So all the keys in that intermediate CA are no longer trustworthy. They're going to go onto the naughty list that we talked about earlier. So the CRL, the certificate revocation list. So that's the good aspect of this. The last one that we have here is going to be the bridge, and the bridge is so here's the example of you've got the CA and then the intermediate CAs. The last one is going to be the bridge model, or BCA. Why it's BCA, I don't know, unless the C is certificate, but it's the bridge trust model, BTM, but the BCA, okay, whatever. So in a bridge PKI trust model, you're going to have your root bridge again, but it's going to be used there to bridge different types, different models. So over here we have a single authority, and over here we have one with intermediate authority, and the bridge type is going to be bridging those two together to allow them to work. So this is what a bridge model is. And going down further, we have key management system, KMS, and that's a software solution that's designed to manage the entire life cycle of your cryptographic keys, including the generation, distribution, and revocation of it. So it's going to manage both your public and your private keys. It's going to automate your encryption processes and strengthen the security within the PKI systems. So those are, they are the ones that are going to be using your TPMs, your trusted platform modules that you have on your hardware. It can also be in hardware security modules, the HSMs. So their example here, it says that in a cloud environment, a KMS could be utilized to centrally manage your encryption keys, leveraging the integrated TPMs and HSMs that they have for enhanced security and storing and processing sensitive data. So, yeah. So, anyways, if you have any questions about this, let me know. Again, let's recap it real quick. We're talking about public key infrastructure. We're talking about the 5 different components: the CA, the RA, the CR, the CP, and the CPS. We have other concepts in there like the CSR, the CRL, and things like that. So, review this. Go through your. These are some nice little activities that you can go through and understand a little bit better. Mix and match. Remember certificate lifestyle, we've got not just issuance and expiration, but we also have revocation and suspension. And then we have 3 different trust models. We've got the single CA trust model. We've got the intermediary one, the hierarchical trust model. And then we've got the last one, which is the bridge model, which is bridging those 2 different types together. So those are the 3 types. And then lastly, again, we have key management system, which is the software solution that's going to manage all these cryptographic keys, including the generation, distribution, revocation, but it's doing your public and your private. And it also works with your TPMs and your HSMs. So that is this section. If you have any questions, as always, feel free to reach out and talk to me about that, and I'll be happy to help. Aloha.